Hi, welcome to another video. This one is a simple puzzle where you need to find the odd man out. But I am doing this video specifically for you to start appreciating the dimensions into a simple math problem, and more importantly, to apply those dimensions into solving a problem. So this is a kind of viral, math problem that's been going around. You need to find out the odd man out. So you have these 5 different entities up there. You need to find the odd man out. So you can pause the video here, think about it, and come up with what the answer is, and also think about the reasoning behind it. All right, I hope you were able to spend some time thinking, reasoning, observing yourself doing it. But let's go a little deeper and see how we can actually solve this problem. All right, so the first is I'm going to take the dimension of color. So if I pick the dimension of color, then I have 4 of the shapes having some form of red and only 1 of them having green. So purely based on the dimension of color, I would say the green square, the 4th one from the left, is the odd one out. But I'm already sensing that you don't buy completely into it. Fair enough. Let's look at other possible dimensions. Let's take the dimension of shape. You can see that there are 4 squares but only 1 circle. So you could say that based on the dimension of shape alone, the 3rd one would be the odd one out. Let's go a little further. What about the dimension of a boundary? So there's something very common between all of them, that they have a black boundary around them. So if I take the black boundary around them, then the 2nd one is the odd one out. Is there other dimensions? Think about the dimension of size. The first 4 shapes or four entities seem to be roughly of the same shape, whereas the 5th one definitely is a size smaller. So you could say that the 5th one is the odd one out. So now what kind of a problem is this if there are 4 different answers depending on how a person perceives it? I would say this is probably the most realistic problem that mimics life, nature, and the universe. It's very keen to understand that not all mathematical problems are deterministic. Deterministic being, there is a specific answer that can be said as right and everything else be excluded as wrong. Nature, universe, and humans in general are probably more probabilistic, which means there are multiple right answers. Determinism definitely helps you get there, but you also have to think that depending on the perspective, depending on the dimension that you choose, your answer could be very well different. So, does that mean that there are 4 different answers together? Not really. Because something key that I've always been telling you is intelligence is the skill and the art of knowing the differences between similarity and similarities between differences. This problem is the one that I need to kind of focus on to say that it's also an art, because here science is not going to help you. The skill alone is not going to help you. You got to think of it in a different way. So for instance, here are my ground rules, which I think is the basis for me to pretty much do this. Because, see, end of the day, the skill that we're trying to build, the intelligence that we're trying to build, is basically to help you solve problems. And what I have seen in my experience is that you can actually solve problems when you follow this fundamental rule that I kind of set myself up for, which is if I were to exclude one based on a particular dimension, then the remaining shapes or remaining ones which are not excluded, they need to be very, very similar. There should not be another odd one out there. Okay, let me put it in perspective. So if I were to say I'm going to choose color and say the green one is the odd one out, then do I have the same color in the remaining 4? And the answer is no, because The second one has only red, whereas the other three have red and black. So just by looking at the dimension of color and looking at exclusion of green, I would say this is an inconsistent dimension. It's a dimension with which I cannot exclude green alone, because once I exclude them, I can still have somebody who is odd, which is the red square on position 2. You could say, no, it's the inner color that matters. In that case, again, the argument falls because the second shape has no inner and outer color. So therefore, the dimension of color does not work here. What about the dimension of size? Like, let's take size, and you can say, okay, the last one is the smallest. So I can take the dimension of size. But here's the problem. Now, how do I say the circle is large or small compared to the squares? Because it does look like the squares are roughly the same size, but the circle is a really odd one out, because do I want the diameter to be the same size as the height of the square, or do I want the radius? And again, is it the inner diameter or the outer diameter? Something that kind of weirds me out and says like, okay, not very consistent. What if I take the dimension of, we've covered the color, we've covered shape. What if I think of, size? So what if I think of shape? 4 of them are squares and 1 of them is circle. So even going by that, do I have all of them to be very similar? This is something that I can accept to some extent, that yes, they're all squares, both with with the inner square and the outer square, immaterial of that, they're all squares. So going by that, I can still exclude the third one, which is a circle, but I would reject it in favor of the next one, the dimension of a boundary, which solves everything for me. Because in this case, all I'm saying is my dimension is my shape needs to have a boundary, and 4 of them have clear-cut boundaries which are black in color, except for the one in position 2 that doesn't have it. So in my book, I would say the second one is the odd one out. However, I still will buy into the argument of shape, because the circle is the odd one out compared to the squares, completely getting the element of dual color out of the picture. But this just goes on to say that even a simple problem like this can have multiple correct answers depending on the dimensions you focus on and the perspectives that you build out of those dimensions. So I want you to always remember this. Intelligence is the skill and the art of finding similarities between different things and differences between similar things. And this problem is just a testament to that. So if you want to improve your math, if you want to improve your level of intelligence, this is the fundamental skill that you need to work on. And did you see any other dimension other than the ones that I listed? Or do you have a different argument of how you see the odd one out? If so, please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like to see more such videos, then please click on the subscribe button and click on the bell icon. Until the next video, thank you so much for watching.